We're the creators of the AADL TV show, Recipe Share, now in its 4th season, and we have some exciting news. We've created a cookbook. Our cookbook is titled, Thanks for Sharing, which includes recipes by all 3 of us, some of which you may have heard here on the show, and some that we have yet to share.
Our cookbook includes dozens of recipes ranging from breakfast to dinner, with snacks, appetizers, and desserts too. These are all our original recipes created by us or passed down in our families. We're so happy that we get to share them with you.
If you're interested in getting a free copy of our cookbook while supplies last, please email recipeshare@aadl.org with your name and the library you'd like to pick it up at. Thanks for Sharing is also available in Braille. Just let us know if you would like the Braille version. And feel free to email recipeshare@aadl.org if you have any questions. We hope you enjoy.
Recipe share, recipe share, share a little recipe with Recipe Share. Recipe share, recipe share, share a little recipe with Recipe Share.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a program on AADL TV where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes in a featured category. Today's category is comfort baking. I'm Katie, and as usual, I'm joined by Elizabeth and Beth, and today we have a very special guest, our coworker, Emily. Thank you for joining us, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Beth, why don't you start us off and tell us about your comforting bake?
Okay, I have to just preface it with, I really wanted to find comfort in making bread. I tried it, and I know the more I try, the more comfortable I get. But man, every time I just get this little bit of anxiety about using, first it's the yeast, then it's not having the right kind of mixer, and then it's like, I don't know. But so I decided to make cookies because I definitely get some comfort from making cookies. And I used, again, I'm referring back to this tried and true New Basics cookbook. It's fallen apart, but I've never made the ginger snaps. I've never made ginger snaps. And I love ginger, as I've shared before. So this recipe calls for a pound, 4 sticks of unsalted butter. And also a 1/4 cup of ground ginger, which seemed like quite a gingery prospect. 2.5 cups of dark brown sugar. I did not have dark, it didn't matter. And then 3/4 cup of molasses, which got me thinking, I didn't think I liked molasses. And then I was like, what is molasses? And it's refined, multiply refined sugar. And it's molasses that makes brown sugar brown. Okay, so 4.5 cups of flour, and then cinnamon, baking soda. You mix it up. You cream your butter first and add the molasses, add the eggs, then add your powdered stuff. Then it says to mix it with a wooden spoon. So that was pretty tiring. I had to stop and start again. But then you let it sit for half an hour. And that's when, after that, you're supposed to either drop it by the teaspoonful or put it in. I finally bought these, the pastry bags, just tried one. Well, it was so firm that was really, really hard to push through there. So next time I will just use my little ball rollers, which there will be a next time soon, because I was so happy you could freeze it too. So it was just really physically like, it was worth it. It was totally worth it. And here's a picture of my plain old brown ginger snaps. They're not real exciting looking, but they are very, very tasty. And it gave me quite a lot of comfort and joy to share them with the family. And yeah, I really liked them a lot. One other thing, they tell you to make them in 1-inch little things. So like it made a lot. It yielded way more than it said. It says 6 dozen, but I probably can get another 6 dozen. because they're so small. But they turn out better when they are smaller because they definitely snap.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would recommend this recipe. And so now let's see what Emily made.
I almost made molasses cookies, which I'm glad I didn't, though it's that time of year where I just want them. But when I was thinking about comfort bakes, I figured it needs to be something that I always have the ingredients for because you never know when you need comfort. And for me, that is snickerdoodle cookies. Just gonna hold up my very wrinkly, much loved recipe. I'll send on a cleaner version. I got it from the blog Modern Honey, and it's almost perfect for me as written, but I made a few tweaks that I'll note. But it follows a very traditional cookie, but the secret ingredient that you may not always have is cream of tartar. But if, like me, you love snickerdoodle cookies, always have those. It's also really good to make your scrambled eggs a little bit puffy if you want that. But you cream the butter and sugar for a good long time. It puffs up, and then add eggs and vanilla, add in your dry ingredients. The recipe doesn't tell you to pre-mix those, but I always recommend doing that. Once when I was in high school, I didn't mix the salt in well enough, and there were cookies that had these terrible salt bombs in them. And you remember that for life. So I will always pre-mix my dry ingredients. Kind of hopefully with baking, goes without saying, but use real butter. But you can use the cheap real butter. With almost all the baking I do, I get my butter from Costco because I do a lot of baking and it's good. Maybe if you're doing something like a shortbread where butter is pretty much the flavor, you might want to upgrade to something fancier, but I make shortbread with my non-fancy butter all the time and I still think it's great. The recipe has you then chill the dough, and I really recommend doing that, mostly just for a prettier cookie. There have been times I've been in a hurry for them, and so I went ahead and just baked them without the half an hour to an hour chill. And they tasted just as good, but they really spread and get those little like crispy edges that aren't as pretty. So especially if you're planning to give these or want to show off the cookies, take the time to chill it. What I found kind of interesting the first time I made the snickerdoodles in general is that there's no cinnamon in the cookie dough itself, but you roll the balls in cinnamon sugar. And for some reason, I've never invested in one of those cookie ball scoops. So I just use my hands, and that ends up putting cinnamon kind of in the cookies too after you do your first handful because you've still got the cinnamon sugar on your hands. And about a year ago, I was given some what in my house we call fancy sugar, but it's just it's a Chinese or not sugar, cinnamon. It's a Chinese cinnamon, and so I did a little research today to figure out like how is that different from the McCormick cinnamon I have, and I guess it essentially comes down to it is more cinnamony. It's described as less delicate than the Ceylon cinnamon, but I've done a blind taste test because when someone gives me a fancy ingredient, I don't know, that's fun for me. So maybe 6 months ago, I made some with just the McCormick cinnamon and some with the Chinese cinnamon and had my husband taste them separately. And we both agreed, though mine was not blind, that the more cinnamony Chinese cinnamon really gave it its edge. And it does make the house smell a little bit more like cinnamon too, which is another comforting thing to me. The recipe weirdly suggested that after you roll the balls, you push them down so that they come out perfectly flat. But I kind of like a cookie with a little rise. I think that's a little more attractive. So, and save the step. I didn't do that. The other thing it suggested is after you roll them out, you take cinnamon sugar and they say to sprinkle it all over the top too. I did that and didn't really notice much of a difference except that it made it harder to clean up. So now I just save that extra cinnamon sugar and put it on toast and things like that until it's gone. These cookies also freeze really well. I would suggest freezing them after baking them rather than freezing them as dough, both because it doesn't really make much of a difference and then you don't need to worry about thawing your dough, but also because sometimes you just need one cookie or two and you can pull them out of the freezer. They're even good frozen, which is maybe embarrassing to admit, but they're probably best if you let them thaw. But that's what I made. How about you, Elizabeth?
Well, I just wanted to say that sounds good. I loved all of your baking tips. And okay, this is a probably silly question, but as I'm going to lead with in my thing in a minute, I'm not a baker. So I'm just picturing, I was picturing as you were describing. So you have the dough, and then when you're chilling it, is it in a log? Is it just in the bowl? Are they rolled into balls already? Like what does that look like?
So I chill mine in the bowl. You
Okay.
probably could re-roll them into the cookie dough and then chill them that way. Uh, but I think it would take up much more room in your
Right.
fridge.
Right.
Um, and I kind of find the first, especially if you've chilled for, well, let's say you forget about them and they're in the fridge for a couple hours or overnight, you can leave the dough on the counter for, 20 minutes and it'll loosen up enough that you can, again,
Scoop.
using your hand or a cookie scoop, you can scoop it out. And it initially takes a little more effort. I will say when you do use your hands, the heat from your hands also helps make it easier to morph into that ball, but knowing that it'll still have the nice chill inside so it won't spread as much. Um, but again, even if you don't have time to chill, they'll taste as good. They just won't be as pretty.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, sounds
I was
great.
just, I wanted to say, I didn't know about using cream of tartar in eggs.
It
Wow.
works great, especially so
Yeah.
I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't mix milk into my scrambled eggs.
Oh,
And so it
wow.
really helps fill them out that way because I miss having the fluffiness that the milk gives. Just like you could measure it, but usually, for 2 eggs, I give it like a 1-2 shake and it works great.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, okay. Well, so Beth and Katie know this about me. I do not bake. I don't really like desserts very much. And I also don't like I think the precision that comes a lot with like true like baking of breads and things like that. Anyway, so my bake is not a dessert. It is from this cookbook, Fast Feasts. Um, quick and easy recipes with a Middle Eastern twist. Um, this was new to me, but I've now made it a few times. So I guess I don't know if I can technically call it comforting because it's not like childhood comforting, but it has been very delicious and easy, and it's super warming, and it comforts me because it doesn't take me a long time on a weeknight. So I feel comforted by that. So this is baked chicken rice inspired by an Iraqi dish called maskoof, I guess. This is new to me, but I always have to try something. And there's it's uses fenugreek to flavor it. I don't know if you heard of this, but this is a spice that's apparently frequently used in Indian cooking and Middle Eastern cooking. And it has kind of interesting flavor. So basically this is super easy. I feel like it's a recipe that I was immediately attracted to, and I make recipes like this a lot with like chicken thighs in different flavors. But you mix 4 crushed garlic cloves, a teaspoon of the ground fenugreek, the black pepper, turmeric, olive oil, and the juice of 1 lime in a mixing bowl, and then you throw in your package of chicken thighs, bone in, skin on, mix it all around. This is funny. In the recipe, it said like top tip, marinate the chicken a day in advance. So all you have to do is assemble and cook the tray bake. I didn't read that. And I was like, well, too late. I'm making this tonight, the first time. But that was fine. And then you pour basmati rice in a big roasting dish and pour in 2 cups of chicken stock. And then you put in 2 quartered red onions and a bunch of cherry tomatoes and kind of like nestle them in, and then arrange the chicken in the baking dish as well. Sprinkle of salt, and you bake it. You cover it with foil and bake for like 25 to 30 minutes until the chicken is golden. And then this is great. The like rice gets crispy around the edges, but then it's still like soft when you dig into it. And then you are supposed to sprinkle cilantro and squeeze a lime over it when it's done. So this is, like I said, this has been great weeknight dinner. Like assembly to on the table is like 40 minutes. And if you remember to marinate the chicken beforehand, that's great. But again, I forgot and it seemed fine. Smells delicious as you're baking it, of course. I was interested to try out this fenugreek spice and I liked it. because of the turmeric, the rice also gets this kind of yellow color, which is pretty. And it's definitely something that I've made. I think I've made it 3 times now. And oh, I have a photo here to share of it looking nice coming out of the oven. And I'm definitely keeping it on my fall winter rotation. So I was happy to discover this. And maybe if I keep making it, it will become a long-term comfort to me. So that's that.
Hey, Elizabeth, I'm not familiar with the spice that you were talking about. Could you spell it?
Yeah. So it's FENUGREEK.
And describe to me what it tastes like.
Yeah. So it basically gives so it's described often as like a slight maple syrup flavor. Um, it adds a little bit of sweetness. I would agree with that. I don't know that I got the mapleness, but it's kind of like adds like a sweetness. Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah, I was surprised to find it. So I was glad I did.
Yeah, I see it in recipes. I've never, it's not something I have in my repertoire at all, but I didn't realize it was sweet.
I know, right? Yeah. It's good. So now I have to.
It sounds delicious though.
Yeah, I have to. Now I have a thing of it though. So now I have to like look up other recipes.
Or just make this one, every week.
Yeah.
How did leftovers, if you had them, how did they keep? How did they reheat?
Actually, really well. Yeah, we only had them for one day because my husband and I eat a lot. So we had because I just used one package of chicken thighs, so like there was only like 6 in there, and I think we had it for like 2 nights of dinner. But I thought it was good. I feel like tomatoes as leftovers are never the best, but these ones, they kind of burst and get saucy in the bake, so that was fine. Yeah, liked it. Good as leftovers. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, Katie, you are last but not least.
All right. So I made lemon bars. Lemon bars are something that I have loved since I was a very little kid. I love lemon anything, but lemon bars definitely always grew up eating those. But I hadn't had lemon bars in a very long time because they're not generally gluten-free. So I thought, that came up in something I was thinking about that's comforting baking. Let's see if I can find a nice gluten-free lemon bar recipe, and I did. So this recipe is from the King Arthur Baking Company, and it's gluten-free lemon squares with an almond flour crust. So this is outstanding. Like, before I even tell you, it's so good. Okay, so you make your crust first. It's you use King Arthur almond flour in this recipe. You can use any type of almond flour though. There's sugar, cornstarch, salt, and then some diced butter, and you just kind of mix that all together with your hands until it's nice and crumbly. You press it down into a greased 8-inch baking pan. So you've got about a 1/2 inch of crust on the bottom, and then you bake that for like 10 minutes until it's golden. And then while that's baking, you make your filling. So it's 2 eggs, a cup of sugar, 1/3 cup of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons cornstarch, a pinch of salt, and then this amazing ingredient is just a suggestion in this recipe. It's mini diced ginger. So mini diced ginger is actually a product name for something that King Arthur Baking makes. It's little pieces of chewy crystallized ginger. So I went to Meijer looking for this and did not find the King Arthur brand, but they had Ginger People brand at Meijer. And since I've made this, I've seen other brands around at Sierra Trading Post and some other stores as well. So you can definitely find this ingredient. May not be King Arthur though. Anyway, they suggest you put a 1/4 cup of that in your filling, and then you bake it for like 18 minutes until your filling is set and not jiggly. Let it cool for a little bit, and then you cut your squares like 2-inch pieces, and you can see I've got a picture here of them cut in the baking pan, but it's like lemon bars in a baking pan. It's nothing exciting looking, but then you cover them and refrigerate think refrigerated for like 2 hours to make sure that they're nice and set before serving them. And here's a picture of how I serve them on a little plate. But yes, they're lemon bars. They don't look exciting, but they tasted so exciting with that crystallized ginger in there. I've never tasted anything quite like it. It was totally unexpected and just thrilling. I absolutely loved it. I served these to the crew that I watch football with, and I cook for these folks a lot so I can kind of like gauge their reactions. And this was a massive hit. Everybody was like, whoa, this is not your standard lemon bar. And actually the almond flour in the crust gives it that really nice, like nutty almond flavor too. And that with the ginger just combined, it's like, this is lemon bars elevated. I would definitely recommend them, even if you don't need gluten-free baking. Like they're just really give it that extra flavor with the almond and the ginger. I'm going to make these forever. I'm going to make these for holidays. I'm going to make them for cookie exchanges. Expect to taste these from me soon. And yeah, just highly recommend this one. It's a very, very good recipe.
Yeah, you had me at lemon and then throw in some ginger. I wonder if you could, because I buy crystallized ginger, so I could just chop it up, right?
Yeah, that's what, even with the little pieces of ginger, I still chopped it up a little bit so that they weren't like, big old chunks in there. But yeah, just chop it up yourself. It would totally work. You use like what do you buy? Big pieces of crystallized ginger?
I buy it at by the pound. And so we just have it. Sometimes I like to just eat it.
I agree.
Yeah, that's what my mom does.
Yeah. They also make amazing cocktail garnishes or mocktail garnishes. That little bit of the sweetness, the sugar mixes into it, and then you're left with this wonderful chewy piece of ginger at the end. But I always forget how great by the pound is. Anytime I have that weird ingredient that I need, or the ingredient that I don't want to buy the whole jar of spice of, and it's always amazingly priced too. Not to make this just like a remember by the pound, but
remember by the pound. We love it.
Yeah, it blows my mind what I can walk out of there with, like spending $7 on a bunch of, like cinnamon that's $29.99 a pound. But when you only get a little bit of it, it's pennies. So yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, wonderful recipes, everybody. Really appreciate everybody sharing, and thanks for everybody watching. Be sure to click the link below to look at the event page on aadl.org to find the recipes we talked about today on Recipe Share and to share your own in the comments. Join us next time when we'll be talking about skillet favorites. We're looking forward to seeing what you've been making, so thanks for sharing.
Recipe Share, Recipe Share, share a little.